You're watching Tri Vibes TV. Welcome to another weekly training video where I'm here to talk through all of the training I'm doing to get ready for Ironman Texas coming up in just about 7 weeks. In today's video, we'll take a look at my triathlon training last week, day by day. We'll take a look at my training plan for the week coming up ahead, and we'll check in with some of the Garmin health and performance statistics we've been tracking here week by week. So, diving in, I think right up front, I'd like to say that I think that this last week of triathlon training was probably the best week of Ironman training I have ever had in training for, this is my third race now. So I've gone through this training cycle like 2 3/4 times now. And something about last week, it just felt like everything clicked. It was a very demanding week, and I was able to get through the training sessions with a good mood, a positive mental attitude. I didn't really have any point during the week, despite all of the volume, where I felt overwhelmed or underprepared or questioning whether or not the training I was doing was really necessary. These are all different things that I have experienced in the past with Ironman training, and even to a certain extent in this current Ironman training block. However, none of that last week, and I'm really grateful for that, and especially grateful for having such a good week of training this soon after having a bit of a hiccup where I had a small bike crash 2 Sundays ago now. The combination of having a great week of training and feeling less and less, feeling the effects of that crash less and less, have really come together to have a very positive week. So before we dive into last week's training day by day, I want to give a quick shout out to the Powerhouse Patriots Foundation. This is a nonprofit organization that has been powering my training and racing for more than a year now. They provide me with coaching services, my training plan, equipment, and a community of veterans like myself who are improving their lives through endurance sports. So if you'd like to learn more about the Powerhouse Patriots Foundation, I have a link in the description below. Wow. Let's dive into last week, go over why it was such a good week of training, and then we'll take a quick look at the week coming up ahead. So started off strong Monday with a short swim in the morning. I really, even if I only get 1,000 yards done, I really enjoy getting a swim done on Mondays. Got that 30-minute-ish swim done on Monday morning, and then I had a 30-minute easy run that I did in the morning as well, followed off by a evening of yoga. So good Monday. The day before that, I had done an 80-mile training ride, a race rehearsal, and so it was pretty fatigued going into the week, but started out strong on Monday, felt pretty good. On Tuesday, I had a strength training session in the morning. First thing, I always knock those out Tuesdays and Thursdays. Got that done, and then had an interval ride on the bike, which was pretty challenging. It was some low cadence work, which I'm not a fan of. So the first 2 8-minute intervals were done at low cadence, like 70 RPM, zone 3 power. And then the last 2 were done at 92 plus cadence up there at zone 4 power. So little mix of zone 3 effort, zone 4 effort on the bike, followed by a brick run right off the bike with a pretty spicy pace for me lately. I'm doing a little bit of most of my running actually closer to 9 minutes per mile. So averaging 8:15 is a little bit faster than usual. Great training day on Tuesday. On to Wednesday for the second swim of the week, a little bit longer, closer to 40 minutes, almost 2,000 yards. The consistency with swimming is starting to pay off, and I think that I want to try to keep 3 swims per week on my plan from now all the way through race day, because I want to feel ready to swim to the best of my ability. So getting that second swim done on Wednesday was key, and then I had a interval run with a kind of a challenge. Originally, I thought it said 2 by 1 mile at half marathon pace, and I was mentally prepared to run a mile, take a break, run a mile. But when I looked at the training getting ready that morning, it was 1 by 2 mile at marathon pace. So went out there and ran a 2-mile interval, and I'm pretty happy with the results. I felt really composed even on the second half of that 2-mile effort, right around 7:50-ish pace, which about a minute faster than my easy pace. And the fact that I was able to stay solid and even and feel pretty much in control for the entire 2 miles was a nice confidence booster, especially because I'm starting the run after already doing a swim. So I know I'm not at my freshest. but a good training day on Wednesday as well. Thursday, back to the gym, knocked out strength training first thing in the morning, and then hopped on the bike for an easy ride, 90-minute easy ride. I believe that Thursday was the first ride where I feel like my new cycling shoes that I have really started to feel more comfortable. Like some of the little things I didn't like about the upper part of the shoe have started to decrease. I'm not noticing them as much. I remember finishing that ride on Thursday and feeling pretty stoked and happy about my new cycling shoes and less concerned about the little discomforts that I experienced in my first ever ride with them, which was 80 miles. So I did my first ever brand new shoes, 80-mile ride, had a few concerns, and by Thursday, I didn't have those concerns anymore. Also on Thursday, went and had a meeting with my coach, which was a really nice, good meeting. Always fun to hang out with my coach. I asked for the meeting because it had been a few weeks since we'd actually sat down and talked about progress. I didn't have to actually change my plan too much to adjust after the crash. So even though I was in communication with him about my recovery from the crash, we didn't actually change anything in my training plan. So I just trained right through that. I think the biggest concern that I had for my coach during our meeting was whether or not he thought I was basically working hard enough on my long runs and my long rides. I've been embracing some slower paces, some easier power outputs, some just kind of being more patient and not trying to kill every single long workout the way that I have in the past. And he was completely supportive of the amount of effort I've been putting in, thinks that I'm on the right track, didn't think that I have been, selling myself short. And that was reassuring to hear, even though I felt a little silly bringing it up. I mean, of course I'm working hard. Of course I'm taking this seriously. And then the interesting thing, what his takeaway from the data from my race rehearsal was that I'd burned a very large amount of calories. He's like, according to your stats here, you burned like 3,600 calories for 80 miles, 4 hours. That's like 800 plus calories an hour. I'm putting in about 500 calories per hour on my current nutrition plan. So there's a little bit of a delta there. And my coach's theory is that I might be in the green here and that I might be getting those calories, burning those calories from fat. However, he recommended that I consider doing some proper VO2 testing in a lab, and the results of that VO2 test could potentially show us where those calories are being burned from at different heart rate levels. Basically, if I do the test, we'll get a better understanding of whether or not I'm taking in enough calories on my bike. Now, I would, with a little bit of a grain of salt, I would say that I think that things are going pretty well. Of course, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering if I might be able to do better. So I may or may not go through with this VO2 testing. Either way, it was a good awareness for me to come out of that meeting with my coach and be more aware that I am burning quite a large amount of calories during my longer rides, and it's going to be really important to make sure that I've got nutrition dialed in for Ironman Texas. So that was the big takeaway, I think the most important part of our conversation on Thursday. So good meeting with coach. Next training day was Friday, where I did a nice long swim, 3,000 yards, more than 6,000 yards for the week. And I really, really enjoyed that. I really do feel better overall when I'm swimming more frequently. So on Friday, I was really happy to swim 3,000 yards. And the two previous Fridays, I had swam 2.4 miles. So it was nice feeling like 3,000 was like a shorter swim. So, all right, that takes us into the weekend's training. Long run on Saturday, another 14 miler. This one, my heart rate average was 138, which is probably the lowest average heart rate that I have had for a long run in this training block. This is despite it being kind of humid. Pace was a little bit on the slower side compared to some of the other 14-mile runs that I've done, but not by much. We're talking like 20 seconds slower. But honestly, that was a really solid run. Like, I felt really good the rest of the day. I didn't feel too beat up. And I think that my taking it easier approach here on these long sessions is really, really helping me this time around. So happy with that run, and then I'm very happy with my effort yesterday on the bike as well. And as you can see, for 5 hours 4:44, I've burned 3,500 calories. So definitely using a lot of juice out there. Normalized power output for the ride was 192 for 4 hours and 45 minutes. That's right in that sort of low end of my zone 2. And my average heart rate was very low, like 10, 15 BPM below my zone 2. So good ride on the bike, and then a strong run off the bike. Whew, like I said, last week was a lot. If you look at all these green boxes here, look at the distances here too, more than 130 miles of cycling, almost 30 miles of running, 6,000 yards of swimming, 3 strength sessions if you include my yoga. I tell you what, folks, it really I don't think it gets too much better than that, especially considering I'm feeling pretty composed this morning. Went to the pool, swam, and I'm feeling really good about my last week of training, especially considering this week coming up. Check it out. Recovery week. It's time to take my foot off the gas. I knew this recovery week was coming, but I tried not to focus on it too much last week. But I really think it's a great time for it. This week's training is so much less than last week. If you look at it, Tuesday, just an hour easy ride, no intervals, no run. Wednesday, just a swim, no run. Thursday, another easy bike, only 1 hour, no run. Friday, 3,000 yard swim, no run. Like, it's just like I can't believe how little running I'm going to be doing this week after all of the pounding I've been doing. And then on Saturday, we're going to go down to Galveston. We have some athletes that were in our coaching program that are getting ready for Ironman 70.3 Galveston. And I'm really looking forward to getting out to a new cycling location. I haven't done a ride there in more than a year. I really like riding the course down there in Galveston. So looking forward to getting down, riding in a place that I like, and also only having 3 hours to ride. It doesn't sound like a short ride, but when all of your riding on the weekends the last couple of weeks is 5 hours and 80 miles and 4.5 hours, like a 3 hour ride sounds fantastic. So looking forward to that as well. And then on Sunday, I have a 15-mile run, which will be the longest training run of the plan so far, but I've done lots of 14-mile runs up to this point. I'm pretty confident that a 15-mile run is going to go well. So that is the week coming up. Looking forward to letting my body recover. And I think that, in the past, I've struggled a little bit with recovery weeks. Like mentally, I just start feeling like I'm not doing enough and I feel kind of antsy. But I'm really going to try to lean into it. I think that having the really, really high volume and feeling like the training last week went really well has set me up to sort of try to seal the deal by having a really good week of focused recovery. And that's sort of a headspace that I'm not quite sure I've ever been in before, despite training for triathlon for about 12 plus years. So think I'm growing as an athlete, which is a nice thing to think about yourself. So that being said, let's take a look at the Garmin statistics really briefly. I am proud to be in maintaining training status, as I have been now for several weeks. It'll probably dip down into that blue recovery status if the recovery week goes as planned. I will not be surprised if Garmin starts, dropping me into recovery or potentially even telling me that I'm detraining, considering the difference between the amount of running and cycling that I'm doing normally and the amount I have on my plan this week. But we'll check in with that on Monday when we come back and do our video next week. So I believe that's everything for today. Thank you so much for checking out my weekly update here, following along. Ironman Texas is going to be here before we know it. I'm so excited to continue to provide these updates once a week. And then, of course, I'll try to make some content during the race week, getting even more specific about my plans for race day. And then, of course, after race day, I'll be making some content and talking through how the whole experience went. So I'm really happy to be here, happy that training is going as well as it is. One more quick shout out to the Powerhouse Patriots Foundation for powering all of my triathlon training and racing. I'm very grateful for their support, and you can learn more about the foundation by checking out the link in the description below. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.